When I was 10, my parents got divorced. My mother moved to a neighborhood across town, which I was excited for, as quite a few of my friends lived and went to school in that area. We settled in just fine. She'd gotten the house of her dreams, a tiny Victorian on a quiet street, and I was excited to be able to hang out with my friends. However, all was not as it seemed. After moving in, we met Mark, the man living across the street from us. In my mother's own words, he was a little off, and to me, that meant stay away. If my parents didn't like another adult, I knew pretty much immediately to avoid them. Mark was a man maybe in his late 30s or early 40s, and certainly was pretty odd. He always wore a ratty sweatshirt and sweatpants everywhere, and walked with the strange sort of lope that even to a 10-year-old was unnerving. I'm not sure how he learned my name, but every time I walked past his house, I'd hear an overexcited, "Hi, Tess," from the porch. I ignored it then, since it meant nothing to me. A few years later, puberty hit me like a garbage truck. I went from young and energetic to shy and awkward, and thinned out considerably. I guess I was conventionally attractive in a certain sense, but mostly was just gawky and kind of string beanie. This was around the time I started getting catcalled and even followed by men. I didn't handle it well, and was too ashamed of it to ever let my parents know that it was going on. Mark seemed to notice me more as well. Our neighborhood had a main street of sorts, and sometimes I'd see Mark here and there on it, coming out of a liquor store or hanging around on a street corner. One day, as I got off the bus coming home from school, he walked towards me and enveloped me in a crushing hug before I could do or say anything, rubbing his hands up and down my body. "Wow, Tess, it's so good to see you. You look so good, and sexy. Wow." I pulled away, a sob welling up in my throat. "What, no hug?" he said, even though he just forced me to give him one. I turned without saying a word and headed home as fast as I could. This happened again several times, and every time I was too scared to tell someone what was going on. I hated the fact that Mark lived hardly 50 feet away from my bedroom window, which faced the street too. I started getting off the bus 3 stops later, and looping back through the neighborhood to avoid Mark, but I'd still run into him sometimes. Eventually, I managed to go without seeing him for a good 2 months. I stuck to the routine I'd been keeping. So far, so good. For a bit at least. One night, as I lay in bed trying to sleep, I heard a thump outside. I was already a skittish sleeper, having a bedroom window facing the street, and living in a city that had its share of interesting stuff going on. Terrified, I shot upright and peeked through the window. Mark was pacing back and forth in his signature eerie gait, rubbing his face and moaning in a way that could only be described as sexual. He was muttering something to himself. It was my name. My heart shot up into my throat, and my body suddenly went hot with fear. Right as this happened, Mark looked up, right at me through the window. "Tess!" he shouted, suddenly running out the front stairs to our porch. "Tess, why have you been avoiding me?" I scrambled back out of bed and out of my room, into the front room, and began to scream for my mother. I could hear Mark banging on the door, and screaming in a slurry drawl for my name, and other things I couldn't and didn't want to make out. My mother, hearing my screaming, got out of bed and asked what the fuck was going on. I looked up towards the door, and saw only a dark shadow through the screen, arms gesticulating wildly. "Tess, just let me in. I want you so fucking bad, baby, please." My mother, a woman all of 5'2", pushed me aside and said, "Get into the kitchen." She then went up to the front door, opened it a tiny bit so that the screen door was still locked shut, and roared, "Leave us the fuck alone right now, or I'll call the police on you. Do you understand?" Mark suddenly went limp and said, Mrs. B. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were here. I just really wanted to tell Tess something. I guess I'll go. I was in the kitchen shaking and crying hysterically, and my mother put her arms around me, and the two of us wept for a little while. I don't think I've ever been so shaken in my life. Mark left me alone after that. I really never did see him again, although this could partly be attributed to the routine I'd begun taking home from school. My mother never called the police on him, though I wish she had. At any rate, he moved out of his house when I was 16, and now a family of 4 lives there. I still sometimes say hi to them when I'm visiting home. First of all, I must say that I'm a massive fan of this page, and have learned so much about keeping myself and others around me safe. This is a story from when I was 18. I'm 25 now. My mom and I were regular attendees of our local church. We both attended different midweek groups. I met with some of the younger, and my mom went to one with some of the middle-aged people. Anyway, my mom's group was about half a mile from our house, and we didn't own a car, so she would often walk there on her own for the 7:30 start. This was fine in summers because it didn't usually get dark until around 9ish. When her group ended at 10, she would call me and I would start walking or running to meet her, to walk her home. We would usually meet not too far away from her group, but we would always stay on the phone until we met. On the night in question, all was usual. She called, I got my trainers on, locked the house, and began jogging to meet her. I usually ran because it was good training for my rugby, and despite being a big guy, 6'2" and about 19 stone, 290 pounds, at the time, I have an overactive imagination and get creeped out by darkness and shadows. In order to meet her, I had to cross our local park and go through a dark patch of trees just behind some local houses. It was usually just before these trees that we met. Anyway, I'm running, and Mom's walking. We're talking about her evening and who was there when she suddenly says, "Joe, hurry up. I think someone's following me." My heart rate goes to the roof, and I start to panic, so I start sprinting, still with some way to go before I meet her. I tell her to stay calm and keep her updated on my position. My mom is a tough chick, thick-set, strong but short. I hear her scream through the phone, and also hear it in the distance ahead. "Get the fuck away from me! What do you want? I don't have any money, and you can have my phone if you want it." I had only ever heard her swear once before, when I had really pushed her and been really rude. This panicked me even more. I ran like I had never run before. The distance I had to cover usually took me a good 45 to 60 seconds to run, but I did it so much faster. It's amazing how your body has this whole other level of physical exertion when adrenaline kicks in. By now I can see them in the distance. My mom's screams were piercing through my ears. I can see the guy has her by the hair and is dragging her around. She was trying to fight him all the way. I shouted, "Get the fuck off of her," and charged in. He was tall and lean, but had hardly any weight to him, maybe 170 pounds max. What happened next is something of a blur, and only through me and Mum talking about it have we come to some conclusion on what really happened. He saw this hulk of a man charging him, and he immediately let go of her. She fell to the ground sobbing, and tried to run. I caught up to him fairly easily, and took him down hard. Mom says I took him clean off the ground before smashing him head and shoulder into it. He grunted and we rolled a little, but I beat him up. I'm in rugby. When you tackle someone, you have to be quick on your feet, so you can challenge for the ball and try to win it for your team. It's at this point that I blank out, but apparently I hopped over him, headbutted him, and beat his face in. Someone from the houses behind had heard the screams and called the police. One guy from the street was a policeman and had come out to investigate. I remember him dragging me off the guy, and it was then that I saw the blood and scratch marks on my arms. He had clawed me, but I hadn't noticed it. The police arrived quickly and we had to be interviewed by them, which is all a bit blurry too. Apparently the off-duty copper had thought I was the attacker, as I suppose anyone would, having seen me beat his ass. The guy was on the records as a thief. He had mugged a couple of girls in town not that long before. When police interviewed him, he claimed he was just trying to rob her, but I'm not so sure. He's in prison now, thankfully. I've never been so scared in my life. I had always imagined situations like this where I was the hero saving people, but I always wondered if I would be able to react when the moment came. Thankfully, I haven't had to ever since. It just makes me so glad that I was being a good son to my mom and meeting her even though I never really wanted to and never saw the need. You never think bad stuff will happen to the ones you love, until it finally does. I'm a 20-year-old woman that lives on the West Coast, and I've lived here for about 8 months. And this happened within the first month of my time here. In most bigger cities, restaurants are partnered with cell phone delivery apps. And the delivery people for these apps tend to frequent the restaurant in which I'm currently working. Typically, I see the same 5 to 10 delivery people multiple times a day, and get to know them all pretty well. Except for one. He only came in while we were busy, and always tried to talk. In annoyance, I would ignore him most times. One day, this man came by to pick up multiple orders. I gave them to him and turned around, barely acknowledging him. That's when the questions began. I should have seen the warning signs then. "You don't even want to say hi to me?" he said to me with a smile. The kind of smile you give someone that you know well. The kind of smile that's meant only for friends. The way that he looked at me threw me off, but I gave him a small smile and said that I hoped he had a good night. He rolled his eyes and went to put his deliveries in his car. He came back a little while later with his phone and told me to put my number in it. I politely declined his offer and began to turn around. "You won't regret it, Charlene," he said, gently pushing his phone into my hands. At this point I was extremely uncomfortable, but the restaurant was pretty much empty besides the chef in the back of the kitchen, and I couldn't get his attention. I set his phone down and did what any person would. I wrote down a fake number on a napkin. To my own horror, he picked up the number and began to dial it into his phone right in front of me. He put it up to his ear and rolled his eyes in frustration. "Just give me a real number." I wrote down my real number but with no area code, hoping that he would be okay with that. And I had just moved here recently, so my area code wouldn't be easy to figure out, not without knowing of my life before the West Coast. "Charlene, you didn't write down your area code." My heart started beating quickly. I had never given him my name, and I never wore a name tag either. "Pick up the phone when I call, and if you answer, I'll leave the restaurant." I could tell that he meant it. He wouldn't leave until I proved to him that that was my number. He called, the phone vibrated in my pocket, and I knew that I had made the worst decision of my life. I showed my phone to him, and then he finally left. I loved my job, but the worst part was the distance. I always took the bus home and had to make multiple switches in order to get home. It was typically an hour-long commute. This wasn't really a problem during the day, but by the time I got off work around 11, it was pretty risky. About halfway through my commute, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. I answered out of curiosity, and partially because I thought it was someone asking me to cover their shift for the next day. But the voice said, "Oh babe, you didn't have to take the bus home. I would have driven you home. Someone as pretty as you should never have to do that. What are you doing tonight? You want to come over? My friends are with me. We could come to your place." I quickly hung up the phone. When the bus reached the stop about a block from my home, I was lucky enough to see that my neighbor had been sitting near the front of the bus and was able to walk with him back into our apartment building. For the next 2 weeks, I got 10 calls a day and about 15 texts, all of which were increasingly strange. Most of them were just about how pretty he thought I was, but then they began to make me fearful. He began to offer me money and tell me that he could find me a better job more suited for a girl like me. He started coming in for more deliveries, and finally I told my boss what was happening. The next time he came in, my boss pulled him to the side and warned him that behavior like this was not okay, and that if he did it again, we would report him to the delivery company that he was working for. He stopped for about a month. At this point, I had picked up a morning job too, and would begin walking to work around 5:30 a.m. while it was still extremely dark. On that particular morning, I was so paranoid that I didn't turn on music and was looking for people behind me. And that's when I saw him. He walked right up next to me, as if we were best friends, and put his arm around my shoulder. Every alarm in my body was telling me to run. "I've been waiting for you. Let me walk you to work. You won't regret it." How did he know that I had gotten another job, too? I declined, telling him that I needed to do homework, and turned into the cafe that was closest to us. I made them aware of the issue, and they allowed me to stay inside until he finally decided to leave the area. And that's when the private calling began. The frequency of the calls began to pick up, and he would leave angry messages. In my mind, what I did next was a good idea, but I quickly learned how wrong I was. Next time he called, I answered the phone. When he asked why I never made an effort to talk to him anymore, like I ever had, I told him that I was gay, and that it wasn't anything wrong with him, he just wasn't my type. "Just give me a chance. I can change you. You've just never had a man treat you right. You won't regret it." Things stopped for a while. There was a text here and there, but about a month ago, I began to get weird comments on my Instagram posts. "Wow, so beautiful. There are so many things I would do to you. Stop ignoring me. I'm trying to treat you right." And many other comments of this nature. Every time I blocked him, he would make a new one. He would call me again a few times and leave a few long messages that I would usually try to ignore. I stopped taking the bus, and I made sure everyone between my friends and family were aware of the situation, just in case anything happened to me. Then, on Valentine's Day, he showed up again at 3 a.m. outside of my window. I woke up to my name being screamed. You see, I live on a busy street, and my bedroom has large windows. I had them open because how beautiful the night had been before I fell asleep. I turned over, without lifting my head, as I knew he would never be able to see me. About every 5 minutes he would scream my name, and say that he could see me and he knew I was there. He told me to come down and talk to him, and right before he left he said one more thing that I almost didn't hear. "You won't regret it." What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave feedback in the comments below, as well as perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a personal story that you'd like to submit, or you'd like to just send me a message, links to all of my social media will be in the description for the video below. This includes my Gmail, Twitter, and Facebook accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the theme of the story is, if it has any, the name of the story, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious at all about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description below, in the order which it appears. I also have links to the artists and list the tracks by name, just in case you want to find more of their work. Last but not least, if you have any criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.